Oh, you know what? It's not showing up on Facebook because they cancel it after 10 minutes. But it looks like we'll be okay on LinkedIn.
Do, 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 do.
Okay.
Yep, there we go.
Okay, so hey everyone, we had some technical difficulties this morning, and if you're waiting on Facebook, we have been kicked off Facebook because we started too late. So I will post the video on my company page and and in the lucrative LinkedIn live group or lucrative LinkedIn group. So just wait and we will get that. I'll get you the replay too. So sorry about that. So I'm here with Sam Liebowitz, and let me see if we've got any comments coming in. I know we started late, so a few of you may not be able to get on, but you are registered, so we'll get the replay to you. Okay, Sam. Hey,
Ah,
it is so great to be live with you, and this is one of the things that happens. For everyone who doesn't know, we had recently had a change in my organization, and oh, we've got Elaine. Hey, how are you? We had a few technical difficulties because I was being the virtual assistant, and that's not my talent. So, so, um, so that's how we got here. But I'm here with Sam Liebowitz, and I have been so looking forward to this podcast or to this. We're talking about podcasts, and I keep saying that. Sam is with talkradio.nyc. And my first question to you, Sam, is what is your superpower?
ooh. Yeah, people ask me this every now and then, and I usually say, I don't always, depends on the day of the week, presence. It,
Presence, being present in the moment.
being present in the moment with people, because I find that, especially when I'm doing my show,
Hmm.
when I'm really present with the person I'm interviewing, I often pick up on things they say and ask them deeper questions on it that other interviewers miss. And I've gotten many comments about that saying, oh, this is the best interview they've ever done. And it's because, I mean, I prepare like everyone else, but I don't over prepare.
Right.
I much more prefer to be really present with them. And I find that when I'm really present with people, that I can really hone in on things that a lot of other people miss.
Okay, yeah, that is definitely a superpower. Definitely. And from what I know of you, that's what I've experienced too. So um, let's get this show on the road. And Sam, I would love to know. I mean, you're very accomplished, and I would really like to get the backstory of how you got to this point in time. Could you fill us in a little bit?
Sure, sure. Happy to. Thank you so much, Dumont. And I just want to say, Dumont, I really appreciate you having me on your live stream and interviewing me on this show. It's always an honor. I'm always used to being on the other end of the microphone, interviewing other people. So I always appreciate it when people interview me.
Well, that makes me a little nervous because
Yeah.
I'm fairly new to this, but it also makes me confident because I know I know you, and I know some of your backstory, and I just wanted to tell everybody before we get started on that if you're not aware, LinkedIn has just started rolling out the ability to do podcasts in creator mode. So this could not be a better topic than right now. So Sam, tell me a little bit about how you got here.
Sure, sure. It's funny. I used to say when I would introduce myself that I've been an entrepreneur since 1993. But, but after going through a workshop I went through recently, I realized actually that's not quite true. But I actually became an entrepreneur back when I was a little kid in the Bronx. And it started off first just one summer. A friend of mine, his older brother, would deliver the dry cleaning for the local dry cleaners, and then he was away for the summer, so his younger brother, my friend, would do it, and then he was going to go away for like a weekend. It's like, hey, you want to make some extra money? They'll give you tips and stuff, and I'm like, oh, okay, great. So I started to deliver the dry cleaning, and this was my first taste of like kind of doing something for money. And I used to get an allowance, but it was tiny, tiny, especially compared to the other kids. And this is, a long time ago. I got the gray hairs to prove it. And and then a little while later, another friend, a couple of years maybe after, another friend of mine was like, "Hey, you want to make some more money?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I would love to. What can we do?" And he's like, "Well, listen, I got this great deal. We go when the trucks go to deliver the Sunday papers on Saturday night to the newsstands. We go to the trucks and we buy a bundle of papers off of them, and then we go around and we sell them in the local bars." I'm like, "Oh, okay, great." And so we started to do that. And especially in the wintertime when it was like snowy outside, it would be great. And so we get a bundle of papers, and they were like, this is a long time, they were like 25 cents. And so we would charge like 50 cents, right? And so we'd go around to the bars, and there was maybe like 50 bars and pubs in the neighborhood. It was a very Irish Italian neighborhood, and a lot of people used to hang out there, and people would 50 cents. Okay, here's an extra quarter, so they didn't have to go out in the rain or the snow to pick up the Sunday paper. And many times the bartenders themselves would buy a paper from us, and they would give us a big tip. They would give us a couple of bucks. That was great. And I realized though that like when I made this money, and I made as much as like $50 in a night in a couple of hours, and that was a lot of money for a little kid back then. And it made me feel good, but I was reflecting back on it, and I realized, it made me feel good because when I was home, I really felt alone. And I'm the third child of three. I have an older brother who's 8 years older than me, and an older sister who's 4 years older than me. And so when I was like 8, 9 years old, my brother was 16, 17. And what 16, 17-year-old wants to play with their, 8, 9, 10-year-old younger brother? And my sister and I, we just used to fight all the time. So I really felt very alone, and I didn't really have friends in the neighborhood. And I remember when I was a little kid, I remember we had this black baby grand piano. My mom made sure that my brother had piano lessons, my sister had piano lessons, but by the time she got to me, I didn't get piano lessons. But I used to hide under the piano sometimes. There was like this little cabinet up next to create this little nook, and I would like crawl in underneath, and I just hide there. And I just to I don't know, like to get away, but it was also just to see if anybody would even notice. And I could hide underneath there for hours, and I would wait and listen, and it would take forever until I said, "Hey, have you seen Sam? No, have you seen Sam? Gee, I wonder where he is." And it would just and it just made me feel like I could disappear and no one would even care. So it created this real sense of emptiness inside of me, this real lack of self-esteem. And then I got a little bit older, and I started hanging out with some of the parochial kids, some of the Catholic kids in the neighborhood who went to the local parochial school. And again, I was a Jewish kid, and it was much more a Catholic neighborhood than a Jewish neighborhood. But I started hanging out with them because at least they were around, and they were relatively okay to me. But then over time, the older ones would tease me, would beat me up, especially Halloween time. My wife loves Halloween, but I hate Halloween because I have all these memories of Halloween, of kids throwing eggs at me and hitting me with a chalk in their sock and things like that.
Oh, wow.
And I found that like I wouldn't stand up for myself. Like I wouldn't speak up for myself because I was afraid of losing these people as friends. And that kind of attitude kind of kept with me to the point that as I got older, other friends would take advantage of me and I wouldn't stand up for myself. Eventually, when I got into business, I had business partners take advantage of me. Until it got so bad. I remember, and this would like really hurt a lot. I got involved in real estate around 2005, 2006. I got started, and I met this broker who he smelled like my lack of experience, and he got me involved in this development project because I wanted to. I became a commercial leasing agent under him, but I wasn't that interested in it. But development seemed like a real business to me,
Mhm.
and and so he brought to me this development project. I'd raised the money. It got a little bit bigger. I needed more money. My mom ended up putting up a lot of money into the project.
Mhm.
And he was supposed to mentor me and he would co-sign to get the construction loan and do all this stuff. And then 2008 hit.
Oh.
And before we had a chance to demolish the building, put in the foundation, the bank pulls the construction loan, and then my broker disappears. I mean, he literally left town. And not only me, but he left a lot of other people holding the bag. And people I learned like years afterwards, I learned people were like after him and were going to sue him and stuff because he stole money and everything. But me, I had this now it turned into a pretty good size, a couple $1 million project. And I was trying everything to save it, and nothing would work. And everybody was in the same boat at the time because everybody was losing their shirt. And
Yeah.
eventually, I had to dump the project, and I lost everything. Like not just all my money, but my family's money. I
Yeah.
had a bunch of small investors, and after that, I was just lost. I didn't know what to do with myself and it was really very painful emotionally, not just financially, and 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 I was just determined that I would never let that happen again. I was not built for commercial real estate in New York City, that's for sure, and I didn't know what to do next. And then I met this guy at a party, and a mutual friend of ours brings this guy to a party that I was at, and says, Sam, you got to talk to my friend Giorgio. I'm like, okay. Like, hi, I'm Sam. I'm like, what do you do? And he's like, well, I'm an acupuncturist. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. I know a lot of practitioners, but I don't know too many acupuncturists. And in his next breath, he was like, but I've decided to become a Buddhist monk and I'm selling off all my worldly possessions. I'm like, whoa, that's kind of different. I was like, well, have you sold your practice yet? And he's like, no, not yet, but I'm talking to some people. I'm like, well, I network a lot. I know a lot of people. Maybe I can help you sell your practice. He's like, oh, that would be really good karma for you. And that would help me a great deal. And then we're talking a little bit more. And he says, oh, yeah. And I started this internet radio station last year. I'm like, wait a minute. This sounds kind of familiar. Acupuncturist radio station. I'm like, what's your name again? And he says, Giorgio Rapetti. And I'm like, I know who you are because my friend Larry Sharp does a radio show on your network and he's told me about you, but he's never put us together. And now there he is standing in front of me in living color. So a week later, I get together with him and I'm like, okay, if I'm going to help you sell your business, I need to know the good, the bad, the ugly. Give me the numbers. And so he's going through the whole story about the acupuncture and he's studied under this grandmaster in Australia and Hong
Mhm.
Kong. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm not an acupuncturist. It's like, okay, I'm not that interested. But then he starts talking about the radio station. And I really saw a lot of potential with that because I have a background in technology and I also have a background in public speaking. And I thought, oh, this is something great. Like I can see these two things coming together. So I kind of jokingly said at the end of this 2.5 hour long meeting, oh, if I can't find someone to buy your business, I'll buy it myself. We both kind of laugh at it because, I don't know anything about acupuncture. I go home that night and I tell my wife about the whole thing. She looks at me and my wife, she just had this way of like just looking at you and you couldn't read her emotions at all. She's like, forget helping him to sell the business. I'm like, really? And I was kind of crestfallen. I liked the guy. I thought, oh, I'll help him become a monk. And she's like, you know what? We may not have much left after that real estate debacle, but we may as well put what little bit we have into a business that's actually making money. Let's just buy it ourselves. I was like, oh, yeah, what a great idea. Let's do that.
Yeah.
And so I had no idea the trajectory that one decision would set my life on. This was a little over 12 years ago. And I started networking. I was going around telling people what I was doing. And suddenly it was so interesting. Like people started working with me. People saw value in what I was offering and value in working with me on this. And kind of like the tribe, my community that I was looking for my whole life,
Mhm.
suddenly they started to find me. And my hosts who came on board the network, they're wonderful people, very conscious, much more intelligent and much more caring people. And then I had my own show, the Conscious Consultant Hour, which I've been running for the last 12 years.
Mhm.
I had no idea how having my own show, like the benefits of it. So I ended up um, first, after about 5, 6 years of doing my show, a friend of mine was like, "Hey, Sam, you want to do a TED Talk?" I go, "Yeah, I'd love to do a TED Talk." Ever since I saw Tony Robbins' TED Talks, years before, I was like, "I'd love to do that." And he's like, "Well, I know the organizer of TEDx Upper West Side. If you want, I'll make an introduction." Yeah, please. And so he connects us. The guy asked me, "So, do you have a speaker's reel?" And I'm like, I hadn't been doing any public speaking for a while, so I didn't have anything. I said, "Well, no, but I have my internet radio show and I have a bunch of recordings. I could send you recordings of my interviews." He goes, "Okay, do that." And I sent him, of course, like 5, 6 of my best interviews,
Sure.
and he watched them, and he came back and he was like, "Wow, these were wonderful. Of course, yeah, we'd love to have you as a featured speaker." And I was like, I was floored. And then years later, I launched my first book. I published Everyday Awakening back in November of 2020, at the beginning of the pandemic, and I hit #1 in 3 different categories on Amazon. And one of the primary reasons I was able to do that was because the listeners from my show who listen every week supported my launch. And it just, I never realized how before I was always like looking for my tribe. I was always looking for community. I was looking for people. And because I was pursuing it, I was always finding the wrong people. But once I stopped pursuing it and I just started to share my voice authentically, and I just started to be myself and put myself out there, my tribe found me. And it was when I realized this, it was such a change of mindset. It was so revelatory to me that you don't have to go out there and find the people. You just need to go share yourself, and your people will find you. And that was one of the biggest lessons for me.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So you went from that little boy feeling abandoned,
Hmm.
basically, to choosing the wrong tribe, and yes, kids do get meaner as they grow up and get into
Yeah.
teens, through all of this, and it was really by using your authentic voice that
Right.
people found you, and by being and when we're authentic, we're vulnerable, right?
Right.
We are open, and so I'm wondering, how has that authenticity and that vulnerability and your superpower of being present, how has that evolved into what you're doing now with talkradio.nyc?
So, once I saw, I mean, helped people for 12 years. I have many success stories of people who've worked with me. But also when I saw my own success and what having a show and really doing this, how it helped me in my own life, I really said, you know what, I want to help other people to have the same experience that I do. And also, as I look around the world and I see all the craziness, I see people actually are thirsting for people who are real and authentic. And
Mhm.
people sometimes think like, oh my God, there's so many podcasts, there's so much this, like why should I bother doing this? And it's no, there is a lot out there, but if you can be real, if you can be vulnerable, as you said, if you can really share from your heart and be present with people, even in a format like this, people will flock towards you because it gives them permission to be real. We don't have to appeal to everybody. We don't need a million listeners. We just need to appeal to the people who we really resonate with and who resonate with us.
Right. Right. We're not trying to please the whole world.
Right. And so that's why now it's my mission to really work with people. And so with the radio station, I kind of look at it now as my done for you solution, because we handle all the technology. You get a producer working with you, we have production assistants who do show notes and all kinds of other stuff. And I bring the hosts together for a host meeting once a month, and they get to meet each other and work together. They've all been guests on each other's shows. I mean, it's
Yeah.
really a sense of collaboration that I've always wanted to instill in people. My current group of hosts are really good that way. But that's kind of my done for you solution. But not everybody is ready for that. So
Right.
that's why I started this, starting and developing this whole new division to the business called Podcast Your Passion. 6 weeks to create and launch your podcast, which is all about supporting people in doing it themselves. So if people are looking for a DIY solution, a do-it-yourself solution, my course is literally, when people come through my course, they show up at 6 weeks live. I answer all everybody's questions. If they just show up and do the homework each week, week 6, you've published and launched your first episode of your podcast. And so many people talk about it and talk about doing it, but never end up publishing it. I mean, I have one host that came to me who for years he was telling me, "Oh, Sam, I'm going to do a show with you. Sam, I'm going to do a show with you." For like, I've known him for, I don't know, probably 7, 8 years. For like 4 or 5 years, he's been talking about doing it, until finally a couple of years ago, he came to me. He said, "You know, Sam, I've been talking about doing this for years. The only thing I have to show for it is like 9 short YouTube videos and nothing else." He goes, "Let me start working with you." And not only did he start working with me and have a very popular show, he ended up doing a second show with someone else that is like taken off and gone through the roof, a show about pets and animal advocacy. And so now he's gotten, I think he's over 100 episodes already.
Wow. Wow. So tell me a little bit more about this course that you're teaching, because how what do people actually do and learn through this course? The presence, and you talked about community and you're done for you. I'm wondering how that relates to a course, or how that.
Well, part of the course is that you join a group that everyone coming through the course can work together and they could share things with each other. Like the last time I gave it, people were posting things in our group about, "Oh, what do you think about this? How does this logo look? What about this description?" And people, not just myself, of course, I would give feedback, but the other people in the class and other people who've been through also, would give feedback. So I kind of, everything I do has to have a community component to it. So really what I go through in the course is, first, you got to start off to define what is success to you, because not everybody it's the same. Like I said, it's not all about becoming, getting 1 million listeners or becoming the next Joe Rogan. Oh, look, only Joe Rogan can be Joe Rogan.
Exactly.
It's
That's that authenticity part.
exactly, but it's what is success for you. And I have people work with me, dozens of different reasons why they do a show. It's not just one reason. So first we go through that. We go through who's your target market, gathering all the different elements that you need for doing a show, getting the right equipment, getting all the technical stuff set up. And that's a big one for a lot of people. Time management. And also, and the main thing of the course is just to take action and just do it.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's about being consistent. Like people think like, "Oh, there's so many people out there that are doing podcasts." No, like there are tons of people who started podcasts, but like I forget what the statistic is. It's something like over 90% of podcasts that have been published have less than 8 episodes.
Oh,
Eight
yeah.
episodes. It's ridiculous. And it's people, and that's not what it takes. Look, I got to being a TEDx speaker after 6 years of doing my show. I got a #1 best-selling book after, at that time, probably 10 years of doing my show. I had a host work with me who became the #1 nonprofit podcast after working with me for about 7, 8 years. And he did a show with me for 10 years. And he ended up on and the measurement we were using was just how many subscribers he had on iTunes. He's the #1 nonprofit podcast on iTunes, and he had more than double the number of subscribers as the second most popular nonprofit podcast.
Wow. Wow. So it really does pay off. So, I know that you're starting your next course. I don't remember when it's starting. Could you, let
Sure. Well, I'm to leading up to the course, I'm doing a webinar next
okay,
Tuesday, the
next Tuesday.
13th, which is called Podcast Success Stories. And I'll pop it in the comments on LinkedIn here, the link to register for that. But there's no cost. It's a free webinar,
Okay.
and it's really I go through some case studies and some important statistics about the industry, but some case studies of different kinds of success that people had to show that you can have success in different ways with a podcast.
Mhm, mhm.
And then I'll be starting my course, Podcast Your Passion, the following Tuesday, September 20th, and it runs for 6 weeks. It's a live course, but it's recorded, and you have access to the recordings
Right.
afterwards. And you join the group. I'm setting up a new group on a new platform for people to connect with each other. Um, and it yeah, it's wonderful. Just come to the webinar and see it's I've gotten so much amazing and positive feedback from people who've come through my course, and I've been doing this for 12 years. I'd have to be an idiot not to have learned a thing or two in that time,
Well,
but
you wouldn't be here in this capacity.
exactly,
And
exactly,
you wouldn't have found that community, or that community had that community find you. So,
right. Exactly, exactly. Oh, interesting. I see Deborah on the LinkedIn says, "Oh, oddly, Field of Dreams comes to mind. I hear you saying to be your best authentic self and attract people who resonate with you. The idea that hosting a podcast helped your own mental health to thrive. Yeah, there are so many benefits to doing a podcast that are beyond even the material benefits of it. The confidence you develop, the sense of presence of being with people, uh, attracting the people who you like. I mean, just think about it. Imagine what it would feel like in your body to just know that just by being yourself
mhm.
and sharing your voice, that people come to you because they love who you are, what you stand for. They listen to you week after week, and they're just enthralled with what you have to offer. You don't have to sell them on anything. You're just
That's
sharing with them who you are.
that's right. And that is so related to, or so much about what branding is about.
Yeah,
It's being that person that you are. I think it was, Anne Morrow Lindbergh, and I'm going to get this quote not quite right, but she said something to the effect of, um, being inauthentic is the most tiring, thing there is. Um, and and I think most of us have had some experience in our life, where we had to be, or felt we had to be that way.
sure.
Um, I can remember going to work for a military contractor and feeling like I had to hang my personality and who I was up outside the door because I was this little school teacher at heart. I was not someone who dealt with smart missile systems. That just,
Mm,
it just was a total clash. So I think there's a powerful lesson in what you're saying, Sam. I really do. And it sounds like the the real turning point was getting to that point, almost stumbling into that opportunity, but being willing to take it.
yeah. I mean, that's another one of my superpowers is I've always been very good at just saying yes to what life puts in front of me. I was never one of these guys who had a 5-year plan and I knew what I was going to do with my life and had all these goals and everything else. I was always more kind of the organic, fluid kind of person of like, I don't know what's going to come next. I mean, my life has been a crazy life and all kinds of bizarre things. I mean, I've had businesses and at least half a dozen different industries. I worked for 9 years in different corporate situations. I've had all kinds of interesting experiences, and I never would have imagined when I was growing up, or even in my early 20s or 30s, that I'd end up where I am today. So it's really just about, saying yes to life.
Mm-hmm. So, what would you say to that little boy in the cupboard now?
I was thinking about that, the little boy that's hiding under the piano.
Mm-hmm.
And it's life brings us these experiences, and I tend to really be a believer that life happens for us, not to us.
Hmm.
Even when something very painful happens or something very challenging happens, we find coping skills, we find ways to deal with it at the time, and they, for our own survival, and they work for a period of time, but eventually we outgrow them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess I would just say to the little boy, it's just hang in there. Like just keep putting one foot in front of the other. And life will get better. It does get better. It's not always easy,
Yeah.
but we get better. It's not even about life getting better so much as we get better, so we're better able to handle life.
Yeah. Yeah. That's important. I wanted to, for a moment, see if anybody had any questions for you. Um, Debbie is she's one of our regulars. So, Debbie, did you have any questions for Sam?
I'll just pop anything else out there. Dumont, the other thing too is one of the really important things about doing a podcast or doing any kind of a live show is first figuring out whether you want a done for you solution or a do it yourself
Yeah.
solution, right?
Yeah.
It's usually one or the other. So once and usually, a do it yourself solution is when you're just starting off and maybe you don't have that much money because you're still building your business, but you have a little more time. So you have
Mm,
the time to learn things and invest in stuff. But the done for you solution is, you're more established in your business, you're busier, you have more resources, so you'd rather just pay someone to handle the things you're not good at so you can focus on the things you are good at.
sure.
But
Absolutely.
once you've created this content and it's recorded, you can repurpose and reuse that content over and over again in so many different ways that it's really not a cost, it's an investment. And it's an investment that will pay back dividends for years to come. I mean, I
Mhm.
have, I don't even have all of my shows posted, but I have maybe like, I don't know, I think I have like a little over 400 episodes posted on the podcasting platforms. And it's incredible what it can do. Okay, I see Sabrina on the
Yeah.
LinkedIn says, how does podcasting turn into income? What is the process? Well, that's a whole class in and of itself. But what I would say is, like, yes, we all want a return on our investment on a podcast, but you don't want to do a podcast just for making money, because if you do it just for making money, your shows are going to sound like 30-minute or 1 hour infomercials, and no one's going to listen to that.
Hmm.
So you have to come from a place of service. But of course, it's an exchange of energy, right? We're putting energy into it. We want to get something back from it. So there are really sort of a couple of different, they're like, I would say, three main strategies for making money after you've built up your reputation, you've built up your listenership.
Hmm.
First, by creating affiliate relationships where maybe you invite someone on your show who's offering a program or a service, and they're willing to give you a commission for it. So you sign up with them, and you promote the link or you promote the event. And if somebody signs up for the paid version of it, like, you get a commission on it, right? So that's
Mm-hmm.
the affiliate version. Then there's the sponsorship model. And the sponsorship model, takes a lot to be prepared for it. You have to know what sponsors are looking for. You have to know your numbers. There's a lot of things involved with that, and there's a whole strategy just around sponsorship. And that's like my high-end course. I go through all of that, and that's a very expensive kind of course, because that's like the most valuable thing that I teach. But
Sure.
the other way of that you can use a show for getting a return on your investment is finding where there might be some strategic alliances, where maybe there are people who are maybe a little bit more successful than you, a little bit further along where you are, that they would make great strategic partners for you. But
Mm-hmm.
why are they going to care about you? You're a small fish in a big pond, right? So you need to get your foot in the door in a way that is of service, that they're going to really like you. And so you can use your show as a way of inviting them to come on to talk
Mm-hmm.
about their work, what they're doing, if they're into any causes or anything.
Yeah.
And now they think very highly of you. And then you follow up with them and say, hey, look, it was great to have you on the show. I'd love to talk to you some more. Maybe there's a way for us to work together. And then find a way in which you can add value to them, where the relationship with them adds value to you. And so that's a way that's often underlooked in a podcast. So you can really use it as a business building tool for creating really good relationships, because you're coming from a place of service. You're looking to help the other person, and they're really take that to heart.
So I see a question from Elaine too. But I wanted to recognize what you just said, Sam, because that's such a valuable insight. I don't know that most of us would think of that, starting out, or think of that when we think about podcasting. Because one thing I've noticed about your program, or your yeah, your podcasting station, is that it's different in terms of the kinds of information that you contribute. And I want to get to Elaine's question, but I want to ask you that first. How is it different than other programs, or talk radio, for instance?
Mhm.
What's the difference there?
So I've made a very, very conscious choice in the beginning when I was thinking about the brand for the network overall. And the brand is to uplift, educate, and empower the audience.
Okay.
Everyone on our network either as an uplifting message, an educational message, or an empowering message. Now,
Mm,
we cover all kinds of topics with the radio station, everything from business to nonprofits, personal and spiritual development, health and wellness, society and culture, sometimes some very important topics that aren't talked about. We've had shows in the past about suicide, relationships,
mm-hmm.
New York City, all kinds of stuff. We've had astrologers and psychics. We've had, actually, I even had someone come on board who ran for governor in New York State on the Libertarian ticket. I usually don't cover politics because I don't like divisive stuff, but he was more just wanting to share his voice and his opinions, and he was a very smart guy with his audience, and it was wonderful. I mean, people couldn't get enough of him because he's very bright, and he did, for a libertarian, he did okay, but of course, he didn't really make much of a dent in the governor's race that year. But we really cover a lot of different topics, and that's okay, because it's not about the individual topic; it's about who the person is. And,
Mm-hmm.
and now it's like I look for potential hosts who really fit in with our culture, and if they don't fit in our culture, I'm not going to work with them.
That's that whole community thing again popping up.
Right. Exactly.
Okay, gotcha. Let's go back because I know Elaine just asked a question. Sam, how do you get companies to pay for commercial space? Do you charge all the same rate, or does it depend on popularity?
Well, actually, it doesn't. uh, I mean, it does depend on popularity, but it's not really about popularity. It's really all about the relationship. So the first thing is, I don't believe in commercials. I personally think the advertising industry is a dinosaur that's dying a slow and painful death. And I really more believe in um, treating your sponsors as partners. And what you do is you get them to give you a story, a piece of content that you use in your show, that you use to refer to them. And then that way people actually listen to it. Because if you say, oh, going to a commercial break, we'll be right back, that's when everyone goes to the bathroom to take a pee or grab a drink of
Right,
water, whatever. Nobody pays attention. We're so inundated with that kinds of stuff, we don't pay
yeah,
attention to it anymore. But if you make it part of your content, then people will actually hear it and listen to it. So I don't sell commercial space. I sell sponsorships, but I don't really sell them. I look at it more almost like a co-branding exercise. So first of all, is are they in alignment with you? Is their brand in alignment with your brand? And what is their need? Oftentimes we think we have to come up with some package and just offer it, and this is what I do for you, and that's it. No, 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 no. Talk to them, ask them, what are their
mhm,
needs? If they're going to sponsor you, it's based on your relationship with them. I mean, yes, you have to have numbers to back up with it, but if you're very targeted with your marketing and you're very clear on who is your primary audience, who is your avatar, who is your main thing, if it's in alignment with theirs, the numbers are not going to be as important. And look, on the internet, numbers are not as big as they are on broadcast, but
mhm.
they're much more targeted. They're much more focused. So it's actually a better quality number. And so you got to know how to explain that to potential sponsors. Because if you say, oh, I have a podcast, and they're thinking like a traditional radio, and you have to have hundreds of thousands of listeners, forget it. There are very few podcasts that will meet that criteria.
Right.
The good news is you don't need that many. You just
It's the
have to
right ones.
understand who you talk to.
Yeah, yeah. It's we talk about this in terms of LinkedIn, in terms of building relationships that are based on mutual respect and that brand alignment because it's so important. And so what you're saying is actually very relevant to social media and particularly to what goes on LinkedIn. I think we have both in the past experienced social media, had social media experiences that were not so positive. I had one recently, where two of my buddies from high school were hacked on another platform, and I knew it because I knew that they didn't live in Colorado, but it's really important to do a couple of things that you've mentioned. One is finding that voice, that authentic voice, and really coming from that place of service. So much of what we, I think, so much of what we fear, in terms of, being in front of the public, and being out there, is because we're not first coming from that place of service, because that allows us to be better negotiators, to be better partners, all of those kinds of things. So, I just really appreciate what you've been saying, and I really want the rest of my listeners to hear this. Here, I see I'm saying podcast. I'm in that podcast with you, Sam. I'm clearly, down the road going to be taking your course because I'm fascinated. I really am. And it has just been a joy talking to you. So I would love to have you come back at some point, and we can just take this from another angle. So I want to
Absolutely.
remind people about your coming up your webinar that's coming up, and that's on the 13th, right?
Yeah, that's on the 13th noon Eastern time.
Okay.
I'll put the link in again in the comments
Right.
section.
Right.
And it's called Podcast Success Stories. And so that's the link to register. And I just want to say one thing about what you said before about, this fear of public speaking that people have. And Jerry Seinfeld says it's like so beautifully. He says, they say that 4 out of 5 people are more afraid of public speaking than death, which means that 4 to 5 people would rather be in the casket than the person delivering the eulogy.
Wow.
And I just thought, it's so funny and it's true, but yet by using our voice, by being willing to stand up there and being vulnerable, that's how we move people. That's how we affect people. That's how we create change in the world. And so it's kind of finding that motivation, finding that thing within ourselves that makes us say, like, what's going on is crazy. I can't keep my mouth shut. I have to get up. I have to get over my fear and actually talk about this because it's too important to me. It's too important to the world to keep silent about this.
Yeah. Yeah. So let your voice be heard.
Yes, exactly.
Well, listen, Sam, I want to thank you so much. I want to see if there's anybody else. Um, oh, this is someone who had to leave, but definitely wants, to put a place in that. And for everybody who gets this recording, I want you to, I'll send all of this information with it. So I know a lot of you are going to be listening to this at a different time. And if you have any questions, reach out to me or reach out to Sam, and we will, get that information to you. Okay. Well, listen then. Thanks so much, Sam. And we're just going to say ta ta for now.
Thank you so much, Duman. A pleasure as always. I thank you so much. I'm so appreciative of you giving me this opportunity.
Thanks. Yeah, Deborah, you can't, if you're watching on Facebook particularly, you can't post comments at some different destinations, and Facebook is one of them. You have to give them permission to post that. So I can talk to you about that. Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Elaine, and we're gonna have Sam back. Okay, so everyone. Thank you, Sam, and thank you guys. So good of you to show up this time, and can't wait until next Wednesday. We have a whole new surprise coming up for you, so I'll be sending you out some information on that. Thanks so much, Sam.
All right. Thank you. Take care.